Welcome back, basketball fans, to another video with Sean on basketball. We're talking about the second round of the NBA playoffs. Obviously, there's still one series to go before every team moves forward, and we'll talk about that and much more coming up now. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Let me know your prediction for this NBA playoff series. If you haven't seen my past videos, go check them out. You can see my predictions, see the way I called the games, and see if I got it right or wrong. But let's get to it right now. So here we go. So the second round of the NBA playoffs are here. So this was my initial bracket that I made prior to the NBA playoffs, where I predicted Boston to beat Miami, Cleveland to beat Orlando. That is the game still in process. Obviously, tomorrow is going to be game 7. As you can see, I did pick Cleveland. Cleveland did have an advantage, but in the last 2 games, Orlando has been outworking them and getting the victories they needed to extend the series. I picked Indiana to beat Milwaukee, and I picked New York to pick Philadelphia. From the Western Conference, I picked Minnesota and Denver to both go through. That is by and far, I think, in my opinion, the best second round matchup of the NBA playoffs, possibly the best playoff game or series out of every potential one that could happen. Let me know what you think. And then, of course, Dallas, who just got through today, meeting Oak City. I'm picking Dallas to beat Oak City, Denver to beat Minnesota in a tough potential 7-game series. Excuse me. Boston to beat Cleveland. If Cleveland gets by Orlando, if Orlando gets by, I'm still going to pick Boston to beat that team. That is probably the easiest bracket in the NBA playoffs. And then Indiana to beat New York. My coworker, he is adamant the Knicks are going to win, but I just don't think the Knicks are going to be able to deal with Indiana. He was pointing out that Indiana doesn't have a great defense, but in the Knicks, you don't really have a great offensive team. You have one point guard who can put up 35 points a game, and outside of that, you have a bunch of team players who, if they're on, can contribute, but no second scorer. Obviously, with Zach Randolph out, or not Zach Randolph, why am I saying Randolph? Yeah, you know what I mean, who's injured. But in truth, I think the reason the Knicks are playing that good is because he is hurt. Defensively, that guy is a sieve. He's a ball-dominant inside player who takes the ball out of everybody else's hands. And I definitely think the Knicks are playing much better without him. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. And then I have Denver beating Dallas. I like Dallas. I love Luka, but I don't think their team is as good overall. And I have Boston beating Indiana. And I think that could be a very good series. Indiana possibly could surprise us, but I think their youth and inexperience is probably going to let them sort of fail against the better Boston squad with much more experience. And then I have Denver beating Boston. I do think the Eastern Conference is by far the weakest. The West is very deep, as we saw all year. So I do expect a team from the West to become the NBA champions. Obviously, if Denver does that, that will be 2 years in a row. That will be quite the coup for Doncic, not Doncic, but for the Joker, who people have criticized openly, consistently, about not being a winner, not being good enough defensively, not being able to lead his team to the world title. And if he's able to do that back-to-back, that pretty much quiets the haters. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who's your team? Who do you support? I'm a Golden State Warrior fan, and I was hoping Golden State would do well, but inconsistencies, injuries really stopped them from playing their best this year. But hopefully next year they will be better than they are this year, even though they potentially will be another year older, which could be negative. But, next year is a new year, so we'll wait for that. So there we go. This is by and far the next game that I think is probably going to be the best in the whole NBA playoffs. I think both of these teams match up very well. It's going to be very intriguing to see how the Nuggets stop Ant, who early on this year during the U.S. team's performance in, was it the Euros or what was it in? I definitely felt that he was that next generation superstar for the U.S. team, and I thought he carried the U.S. team. And obviously, with a more experienced team full of much better experienced players like LeBron and everybody else that's going to be on the Olympic team, he's obviously not going to have as big a role. But I do think that he's going to be a key part to that team. And it's going to be very tough for Denver to stop him. We know he can get in a role athletically. He's great. He can, at times, take a back seat to other players in the team. And, that might be a good thing. If Denver doesn't get him riled up, get him fired up, and he takes more of a backdoor role, that would be a coup for the Nuggets. As far as Denver, obviously, they have to try to somehow stop the Joker. Not just scoring, but just on the boards. Against LA, he was averaging almost 20 boards a game. Obviously, he's a great passer from the post, high or low. He really keeps the offense flowing, brings the ball up, hits great long passes after defensive rebounds. He's really the motor that gets this team going. Obviously, they also need their great point guard and their team to fill in the needs. And they got that this year so far in the playoffs. And obviously last year, that was really what led them to where they are. I mean, you cannot win at the highest level unless you have a team behind you. The question is, whose team is better, Minnesota or Denver? Minnesota's got something some teams haven't had, which is legitimate height. And that could potentially cause some trouble for the Nuggets. They also have very good players, very good role players, a very deep bench. And it's going to be interesting to see whose bench really steps up, because that might really be the difference between this series. Who are these bench players that step forward and help support the stars of the team? Obviously, Denver does have home court advantage, and that's integral, especially in this type of series where generally bench players play better at home. And by having home court advantage, that could potentially get the most out of your team and get you over that tough competitor. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, I'm leaning towards Denver, the more experienced team, the team that did it last year in a very dominant fashion. So far this year, they don't have any big injuries, but obviously injuries are always a part of something that you need to pay attention to. It'll be interesting to see Minnesota, how Cat does, because he is the number 2 scorer on that team. If he is really working well with Ant, that 1-2 punch is very dangerous, very deadly. What Denver has to do is make him work offensively, right? Make him work. He's prone to get in foul trouble because he's lazy on defense, doesn't move his feet very well, and tends to reach in quite a bit. So it'll be a very interesting series. Obviously, first game is tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that with bated breath. Let me know who you think is going to win out of this series. It is by and far, I think, the most competitive out of all of them. Then we get to part 2, Oak City versus Dallas. This is a very intriguing matchup as well. Obviously, Oklahoma has been great. They were the top team in the West this year, very young team. Obviously, a lot of really good young players and a potential MVP superstar point guard who's really been leading them. So it's going to be one MVP point guard versus another MVP point guard, both guys that play at their own pace, get to where they want to get their shots off, and help their team move, and obviously are the key cogs for making their squads run. But then for Dallas, you have Kyrie Irving as your backup, who easily could be the front man, the man we're talking about in that conversation. Whereas Oklahoma doesn't have that number 2 player at the same level. I feel that they don't really have the height and physicality down low. That's definitely something that benefited Dallas in this past series. The physicality they were able to put out there with Gafford and Lively and Washington, right? And just the physicality they were able to put on teams, also to win the battle on the boards. And I think that was very important. And that's definitely an area where Oklahoma City can be beat. They're not the biggest team. They don't really dominate the boards the way a team in their position should, especially if you want to win in the playoffs. And the playoffs are very different to the regular season. So it'll be very interesting, this matchup. The only one caveat is obviously Luka's knee isn't at his best. He was very effective his last game. Obviously today he was ineffective. He was able to be effective for the team, help them win, do what he had to do. But his shooting was very off, and that obviously, has a lot to do with his freshness and just his knee and just feeling confident with his base. And you could see that was really bothering him all day today. Even though Dallas obviously was able to outwork and win that series. So congratulations to them. Kyrie Irving had a great second half, which is what I said he needed to do. The first half, he did not contribute at all, and Dallas was still winning. So if he was able to contribute, I felt that it was pretty confident that they were going to beat the Clippers. They did. The Clippers are, as I said in a recent video, you can go check that out as well. These super teams just don't work effectively. You don't have the pieces, the complementary players to be at your best, right? And that's also something I commented on the U.S. Olympic team. I think complementary players are integral if you want to be the best team around, to be a title contender, to be a championship team, to be a gold medal winner. You can't just have star players. You need to have players that know their roles, are able to complement the other players. And by doing that, you're going to get the most out of the team. We saw that with Jones today for Dallas. Great defender, gave George tons of problems, got a lot of rebounds. Obviously, he's very long, very active, and those are the kind of players you need. He can hit a three-pointer when you need him to, but it's mostly the hustle plays, the defensive aggression he brings to the floor, and those defensive and potentially offensive rebounds he can steal with his length and athleticism, which, these are kind of things that really change the momentum of a game. And those are why you need players of that nature. Both of these teams have great team players that fill those roles, right, to really benefit their MVP candidates. So it'll be interesting to see which of these teams is able to really get the most out of them. It's going to be a great series. Hopefully Luka's knee is feeling better so that we can at least get, two healthy teams out there. But let me know in the comment section below, who do you think is going to win? I do think this is a very tough series. I could easily see it go to 7 games. Then we have the Boston Celtics, obviously the team with the best winning percentage this year. Very good guard play, very experienced. Obviously 2 forwards in Brown and Tatum that are very good players as well. The problem they have, and Porzingis is hurt. So if he's really hurt and not able to play, that definitely takes away a lot more of their depth. Then they're going to rely on Horford to really carry the team. And Horford's a great player, but obviously getting pretty old in the tooth, long in the tooth, as they say. My one issue with Boston this year is I didn't think that they had much depth. And I thought potentially this could be exposed in the playoffs. So far, it hasn't been exposed, but they haven't played the kind of teams that are really going to push them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. Obviously, we're talking about how they're going to be playing the winners of the Magic and the Cavaliers. This is a 7-game series. Obviously, tomorrow is going to be the big day. It'll be interesting to see if Banchero can carry Orlando or the guards of Cleveland could win. When I predicted this series, I was really talking about the guard play for Cleveland being the difference. And early on, it was the difference. And I felt that Orlando just didn't have the guards to match up, even though I did feel Banchero is probably the best player out of the 2 teams. And they do have very good, versatile forwards. One of the problems that obviously the Cavaliers had is that Allen got hurt. And you end up losing that tall, athletic defender on the inside. And then you force other players to fulfill that role, taking away some of the depth that I also felt they had over the Magic. And then it's much harder to compete against all the forwards Orlando has, because Orlando has quite a group of big men that they can just rotate through. And that obviously is very beneficial for them and has helped them overcome Cleveland in the last 2 games. Game 7, this is where the stars need to step up. So we will see who's able to step up and which of these 2 teams moves forward to meet the Celtics. But at the end of the day, I do think the Celtics are going to get by Orlando or Cleveland. So it doesn't really matter who wins. Inevitably, Boston is just too good. And their quality will obviously show out and lead them into the next round of the NBA playoffs. And then finally, we get to two teams that just clinched yesterday, Indiana Pacers. This picture tells you everything you need to know. Depth, deep, right? They're the kind of team that can get a lot of contribution from their bench. Obviously they have very good players and young, right? And you can just see this team definitely getting better and better as the years progress, as they get more experience, as they just become more playoff resilient, right? Which is obviously something you have to learn on the job. For the Knicks, they've overperformed, in my opinion. I think they're performing better than most people would give them credit for. They have good players, but I don't know if you'd say they have great players on the team, right? But yet they're showing you one of the key things to being a good team: chemistry and players that support one another so that you can get the best out of each other. And that's definitely been what's helped carry them to where they are. Now in a series between these two teams, I think Indiana's guard play is just as good, if not better, than the Knicks. I think they have more depth. They definitely have far more depth in the forward position, and that definitely could be a key area against the Knicks. The Knicks, who don't really have the best group of forwards. Obviously, Ginobili played really well. He's a very good player, and obviously midseason trade to get him was a big move and a bold move. And after the first round of the NBA playoffs, you have to say it's been successful. But we'll have to see what he does moving forward. Offensively, he does come off cross a little one-dimensional. He doesn't really create that much for himself off the dribble, and he hasn't really been shooting great from the three-point range. Luckily, their guards have been playing great. They've been getting good work from the big guys as far as D'ing up. But it's going to be very different against Indiana, whose two big men, Turner and Siakam, are both very versatile, athletic, offensive players. Both can step out, hit the three. Both can take you off the dribble. It's going to be a much different scenario than facing, Embiid for the 76ers, who obviously is the best of the forwards that we're talking about, and offensively is very good. But he wasn't 100%. Obviously, physically, he wasn't able to move as well as he usually does. Generally, he does have, quite the history of injuries as well. And I think because of that, it made it much easier for New York to D him up and force the rest of the team to beat them. With Indiana, you can't do that because they have so much depth, so many areas where they can contribute from. And I definitely think they are going to get the leg up on the Knicks. But let me know if you think different. Obviously, as I told you, my coworker is adamant the Knicks are going to win. I don't know. Everybody has an opinion, and that's what's great about sports and playoffs. Finally, who are you picking to move through the second round? Obviously, every team and every matchup has been solidified. We're just waiting tomorrow for obviously Orlando and Cleveland to get through to find out who Boston's going to meet. But as far as the West, it's all dusted and ready to go. Obviously, Minnesota and Denver start their series off tomorrow. I can't wait. Obviously, there's a big fight between Canelo Alvarez and Jaime Munguia. Before that fight, I'm going to be watching Denver and Minnesota. So leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. That would help me a lot since this is a new channel. And obviously, I'm just trying to build it up and get people to pay more attention to it. So with your help, we can help the community grow. Thank you very much. And I'll see you soon.